Hey there Wargamers, and welcome back to another Wargames Delivered video. In this video, we're going to be going over the difference between matte varnish and gloss varnish. Let's get started. So the big reason for making this video was that I know when I started out in the hobby, I didn't really know the purpose of varnish, didn't really use it, and definitely didn't know the difference between gloss or matte varnish. So just wanted to give you guys a example on a model and yeah, kind of showcase the difference and what they do. So we're going to start off with the anti-shine matte varnish, and essentially what varnish does is it pretty much just adds like a protective layer to your models, seals in the paints that you use, and kind of adds a little vibrancy to them as well. So that's pretty much the point of it. I would say you should varnish all of your models. You can varnish at any stage, but the most important time to use your varnish is at the end when you finish your model. You want to kind of use it to seal in the final result. And as you can see here, I'm pretty much just working the varnish all the way around the model, only really avoiding the metallic parts, and in some cases just covering metallic parts as well. So pretty much we're just avoiding the arm and the head of the hammer. Those are the parts that we really want to be shiny and kind of stick out. So we're just going to save those for the gloss varnish. And we're just going to avoid the metallic bits because those we will cover with the gloss varnish later on. And the only thing to really look out for in this step is you want to avoid the varnish pooling in certain areas, just like you would with a wash. So if you notice any pooling, any excess varnish getting in certain areas that you don't think it needs to be, just go ahead and wipe that away with a clean brush, and you should be good to go. And I typically thin my varnishes down just kind of in between what you would do for a normal acrylic and a wash. So for a wash, I barely, get any water on my brush and then mix it in. And then for an acrylic, it kind of depends on the acrylic. So for this, I kind of just go with a heavy drop of water on the brush and then go ahead and mix it in, and that should be good for for mixing it together. Always be sure to give it about an hour or so to dry. Varnish takes a while to dry, and if you touch it, it can leave fingerprints on the model from the varnish. So just be careful of that, keep that in mind, and we will go ahead and switch over to the gloss varnish here. Again, thin this down the exact same way we did the matte varnish, and we're going to just cover the metallic areas with this part. And as you can see, this one's a little bit harder to see on your palette, so just kind of remember where you placed it, and go ahead and get a good brush full, and we will just cover the arm over here, the left arm here, and the head of the hammer on this model. This might be a little bit hard to tell on just one model, so I'll go ahead and grab a couple other models and just do them entirely in each varnish so you guys get a better kind of understanding of what they look like. And with this step, just try to be as neat as possible around the areas we covered in the matte varnish. If you do get any gloss on the matte varnish areas, just go ahead and wait for it to dry and then cover it with the matte varnish again, and it should be fine. And both of these you pretty much just want to apply like you would apply a wash. Just cover the entire area and wait for it to dry. And of course, be as neat as you can around these smaller areas. Grab a smaller brush if you need to. But yeah, like I said, if you need to just go back over with the anti-shine matte varnish over certain areas, once this has dried, feel free to do that, and that should clear any shiny areas you have from the gloss varnish that you don't want. As you can see here, his metallic arm has a little bit more shine to it than the rest of his black armor, adding a little bit of contrast to it, although I was a little bit messy with the gloss varnish on some of the smaller areas. As you can see around the insignia on his backpack, that has a little bit of extra gloss to it. So we're going to go ahead and clean that up here. We've got a little bit of extra matte varnish, and we're just going to take that and cover the surrounding areas around the metallic bit on his backpack and all the other bits that we need to that are, got hit with the gloss varnish on accident. And you don't need much for this, just kind of do it like you would do highlighting. Just be very careful. I grabbed a smaller brush for this, and just be as neat as possible around the areas that you want to keep shiny. Once you finish those steps, your model should come out like this with a little bit more of a crisper finish and a clear difference between the metallic parts and the matte parts. So it's a little bit hard to tell on this model, so I'll go ahead and grab a couple other models and we will switch over here. And these are Plague Bears, Poxwalkers. There's some kind of Nurgle unit. So we'll go ahead and cover each of these guys in one of the varnishes, and that should give a little bit more of a clear depiction of what the varnishes finish like. And with varnishes, you pretty much use them the exact same way on every model, so always thin them down, always use them like a wash, and you should have good results with them. And typically when you're using varnish, you're covering the entire model, so I like to use a larger brush for this, usually always, unless I'm kind of, cleaning up the differences in varnishes like we were in the previous step with the Space Marine. But yeah, for the most part, just a large brush and covering the entire model does the job. You can absolutely run these through an airbrush if you have one. They work pretty much just like a medium does, so just kind of be careful with it, thin it down a very small amount, and you should be good to go with that. Alright, and now we'll switch back over to the gloss varnish and cover the other guy here. Again, just using the exact same techniques we used before. Just cover him entirely, and we will give him a good amount of time to dry and check the difference after that. With both of these, you'll want to give them about an hour to 2 hours to dry. You can always go longer. The longer you go, the better. Usually when I do my varnishing step, I like to varnish at the end of the night, and then the next day kind of pick up where I left off. So if there's any more work to do on the models, or if they're done, that's kind of how I like to leave them to dry. So that's just kind of my personal preference, but obviously it's your hobby. Do it the way you'd like to do it. Alright, and with the comparison shot, as you can tell, the guy on the left here is a little bit more shiny, has a bit of a more sheen to him. And the guy on the right over here has no shine to him at all, and that's the point of the matte varnish. That's the purpose of it. So, as always, thanks again for watching here, guys. And be sure to check the link in the description for the giveaway attached to the video. And happy wargaming!